What happened?
Live.
You went live.
Oh, we're live? Okay. Just making sure.
It did what you wanted it to do.
Exactly. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Please share this broadcast with your friends and colleagues. My name is Rick Ulfik, and I'm founder of We the World and the We campaign at we.net. There you can learn more about We the World. Today is day 11, the culmination of the annual 11 Days of Global Unity, which starts on September 11th and finishes today on the UN International Day of Peace. And this is our 16th anniversary of doing this. Back in 2004, We the World brought together global partners like Amnesty International and United Religions Initiative to launch 11 Days of Global Unity. This year, 11 Days is concurrent with the UpConvergence and Peace Weekend, an extraordinary alliance of organizations including Unity Earth, the Compassion Games, the Sign Network, We the World, and over 100 groups that represent an unprecedented unity movement, which I would say is needed now more than ever before. To learn more and participate in 11 Days of Global Unity and the 11 campaigns for change that go all year long, you can go to 11daysofglobalunity.org, and the 11 is a numeral. Each year, We the World hosts the 11 Days of Global Unity TeleSummit with 11 powerful dialogues on each of the 11 campaigns for change. Today, our conversation will focus on the 11th campaign theme of peace. We the World has a variety of action steps for its peace campaign, and I'll give you a few interesting examples. First, of course, is to celebrate the UN International Day of Peace, September 21st, especially by observing a minute of silence at 12 noon globally and in other ways. And I believe a minute of silence has been happening since it became September 21st in New Zealand. So 12 noon around the planet in each time zone, I think they're doing that on every continent, as far as I know. And we also have action steps around the idea of ceasefire, starting with the stated goal of the UN to have a global military ceasefire on September 21st, the International Day of Peace. Another action step is to call for September 21st being a day of nonviolence in all media. We call it a media ceasefire. And another one is to call for September 21st being a day of nonviolence in our communities, a ceasefire for gangs, domestic disputes, and we've already done the idea of a ceasefire in prisons for the International Day of Peace. And I think we'll be hearing more about that idea from ShaRon, one of our guests. But basically, we did something with Michelle Reed at the Lakeland Correctional Facility, which had at the time 1,500 men who had never really experienced this idea of a ceasefire for the International Day of Peace, and they did it. And it was a day when there were no referrals to isolation, solitary. There were no fights. It was like something that had never happened before in that prison. So anyway, so I just figured I'd mention that. You can learn more and get involved with our peace campaign and all of our 11 campaigns for change by going to 11daysofglobalunity.org. Today, we'll be talking about peace with ShaRon, David Gershon, and John Raymer. Let's start with ShaRon. ShaRon is founder of No Judgment, Just Love, whose mission is to inspire us all to live together with unconditional allowance and courageous action at that time. She is a dynamic facilitator as well as a compassionate life and family coach. And today she is finishing up the We Campaign 5-day challenge for 11 Days of Global Unity, culminating on September 21st, the UN International Day of Peace. So we will hear about that 5-day challenge as well. Welcome to the broadcast, ShaRon Ria.
Thank you, Rick. Hello, everyone. Hi, John. Oh, boy. And David, I'm so happy to be here among people that I'm learning more and more about and being able to share more about No Judgment, Just Love. I've been a member of WE for about 2 years, and I am just amazed at the participation of our volunteers to really bring about this International Day of Peace, culminating after 11 days of just amazing programming from everyone. So I really want to honor all of you for that. Thank you. I watched almost every day. So my contribution to the 11 days of global unity to help transform our world has been a 5-day challenge with No Judgment, Just Love at the center of that challenge. I think bringing about peace in our world is a collective effort. Obviously, we all have our parts to play. And my goal is to help each individual find peace within themselves so that they become what we want to see in the world. And that was the genesis of this 5-day challenge. Every day, I posted an opportunity for people to explore less judgment. Explore no judgment in 5 different areas. The first was within yourself. Can you have just love unconditionally for yourself? And that question was resounding with a lot of people. I had so many comments from people saying, it's difficult for me to do that all the time. I judge myself more than anybody else does. So thank you for this opportunity to sit for a day and really explore, can I love myself unconditionally? Because when you have that, then you can give that. The second day was moving in a little broader to your family. Can you, and I had 5 different words, can you show no judgment to a family member that you may be struggling with in that relationship? Or maybe you've given up altogether. And can you sit for that day on the second day and discover a way to love them unconditionally? The third day, we went really global and we were trying to promote international friendships. And I invited everyone to share where they lived now, what countries they've visited, where they would like to visit. And we also had a number of ways to say hello in different languages. It was an exciting day, and so many people participated, sharing, and I got to travel the world just by reading all of the responses that people had. The fourth day, I invited people in the evening, and every evening I had an evening thought to get some rest because the fourth day was going to be pretty challenging. And the fourth day was, can you find less judgment or no judgment for people you disagree with? And that was a big one. You know, we all have people that we have very big challenges about their behavior and how we see it. And can we just allow them to be who they are and focus on what we can focus on, which is our reaction to what the people are doing that we disagree with. And then today, on International Peace Day, I'm inviting everyone to discover forgiveness for yourself and for others. Because through forgiveness, you find the peace within yourself. You find the opportunity to share that peaceful nature that you've uncovered with everyone that you interact with. And so the culmination of it all is to recognize that no judgment means to move beyond judgments that divide in your thoughts and your words and your actions so that you can lead with love. This, I think, will genuinely help us relate to each other better, and bring peace through our world. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Now, do you want to also talk about a little bit about the work that you have done in prisons and today on the International Day of Peace, Michelle Reed, who's been working on the peace campaign, she has been involved with some prison projects, and I know you worked with her a little bit. Maybe you could talk about what that's about.
Yeah, one of the projects that Michelle was working on is called the Compassion Prison Project. And they work with incarcerated people who have possibly identified as having ACEs in their history. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. And they range from being brought up in a family that has a drug addiction, being brought up where you were neglected physically or emotionally, a range of places where children didn't have a loving, supportive family environment from 0 to 18. I happen to be a certified instructor for ACEs, so I have great awareness that what we grow up with, if it's not identified and we help our children uncover and recover, then that produces an environment for people to be incarcerated by their actions, whatever that happens to be. So that project is very dear and very necessary. I had the wonderful opportunity here, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, to work with one of our prisons where women are incarcerated. And I was brought in to teach family reunification. And it was just a joy to be able to be in a prison environment, which I had not been in before, and find that people are people wherever they are, even if they're incarcerated. And they are thirsty for, they are parched for us to see them as whole and unified, even though their behaviors are disconnected from that. And so these women, 25 or so of them, walked in, and on the first day after sharing the message of no judgment, just love, of having them have the opportunity to see themselves as whole, oh my goodness, what a transformation for the next 5 days that I was there. They also had an opportunity to reevaluate their parenting with their children as a whole person. And they were invited to write a letter to their family, a letter of introduction. Here's who I was, and here's who I am right now, and here's who I intend to become. Let's talk from that place. It was awesome.
It sounds totally awesome. Wow. So thank you, ShaRon. And
Thank
we can
you.
talk more about that. Let's now bring in our next guest, John Raymer. John Raymer is founder of Compassion Games International and co-creator of the Synergized Impact Network Exchange, SINE, S-I-N-E. It's a global alliance of social innovators committed to large-scale behavior change through collaborative learning, innovation, and unprecedented unified action. And John has been intimately connected to the Caravan of Unity, the Upconvergence, and Peace Weekend, all concurrent with 11 Days of Global Unity and leading to the launch of Peace on Earth by 2020. And we'd love to hear some reflections from you, John, on any and all of these things. Welcome to the broadcast, John Raymer.
Great to be here, Rick. Thank you. Thank you. And ShaRon, that's fabulous. I love the thought of taking a day to not live in judgment. Oh my gosh, may it be so. And Rick, it's actually, I'm ready for Peace on Earth by 2020, but I just want to point out that maybe we misdated it, David, but the game is saying Peace on Earth by 2030. Now, I'm not, we don't have to wait, okay? But, and actually it's perfect that we be here with David at this time as well, because the Compassion Games, which is, and ShaRon, you've played and we've done that, and we've actually had them in prisons. We will show you a short clip about that. But this idea of behavior change was David's gift to me. He said, John, being kind and compassionate is great, but that's not what the world really needs. We need to change our behavior. And so this whole idea of, the values clarification that we're all going through, this is an incredible moment. I mean, we all had to kind of get locked up and quarantined to actually connect with each other in a whole new, meaningful way. And we've just come through the convergence, all part of this 11 days of global unity that the Peace Weekend then was what we were ramping up to. And there's been so many people hungry and eager to take on the challenges before us. And changing behavior isn't easy. And fortunately, we've got people like what David's offering and what so many people are contributing to, for us to grow up, to us to, wake up and lift up the world. There are people rooting for us and want to believe that this is a time of great change for the positive. So it's a joy to be here. I agree with you exactly what you're saying, ShaRon. When we played the games in the prison, it was amazing what happened. And again, what's interesting is a good bridge to what David's sharing is the power of a game. If you want, Rick, let me share this. It's about 2.5 minutes, and it is the story of, and it wasn't me, but someone, an interfaith minister, who said we should bring the compassion games into this prison, and it was a surprise what happened. And here's a quick little story about it.
What if peace on earth was actually possible? What if it was not only
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I saw that it said 11 days. Was that during the Global Unity Games?
No, it probably was. It probably was.
Isn't that great?
I know. We've been partnering together. I mean, that's the dream, right? That's the idea of synergy, of synergizing the impacts we're making. That we're better together, as I think one of the actions in the 7 actions to create peace on earth talk about. So we're all figuring this out. And I'm grateful to be here and share what we're doing. Later today we have the closing ceremony at 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time. There's going to be a community engagement hour because we've actually built a playground. We call it the Up Playground by 2030 decade. So each of these different expressions can have a place in the playground. We call them play spaces, where people can then come and discover these initiatives, partner up with these initiatives, so that in the 10 years that follow, we can actually experience the growth together as a synergized impact that we're making together. So grateful to be here, Rick. Thanks for all your good work, and really excited for what we've been able to do. And Ben Bowler, my God, my heart goes out to him. All these years dreaming of this road to 2020, and so many other partners, the Uplift Connect folks and Unify. Unify's done so many great things. There's so many great organs. They're at the UN today, which is such a gift to Ben because it started there in the chapel. I mean, so many people are really leaning in to support each other. It's a beautiful sight.
I know, it's amazing, right? All the things that are going on. It's pretty
I mean,
incredible.
all over the world. I mean, we were in Africa this morning. We've got stuff coming from Africa, South Africa later. We had this woman in India build an entire Trello board. We had 25 of these rooms. We got a room and a board. Her Trello board was to the Nobel laureates. Since 1901, she had every acceptance speech put up there. And it's just
Wow.
so many
Wow.
examples of what people really want to see us figure this one out. You know, we need the courage and strength and endurance to just not quit and to keep driving forward and lifting ourselves up in the process. So it's an honor to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's great. It's fabulous. Okay, let's bring in our next guest. David Gershon, co-founder and CEO of Empowerment Institute, is one of the world's foremost authorities on behavior change and large system transformation, and applies this expertise to issues requiring community, organizational, and societal change. Building on his background as the director of the Lake Placid Olympic torch relay, he used the mythic power of relaying a torch of peace around the world to engage the participation of 25 million people in 62 countries, and through the media, an estimated 20% of the planet's population in an act of global unity. And he is now working on peace on Earth by 2030. Maybe you can talk about this a bit, David. It's so incredible. And welcome to the broadcast, David Gershon. You're muted. We don't want to mute you. You have to turn your, there you go.
My microphone say I'm so sorry about that.
Hi, David.
I was thinking for a while we had a free ride because we don't have to worry about peace on Earth by 2030. We could have it done already, but we still have some work to do, it seems. And
Yeah.
ShaRon, I love what you're doing with prisoners. And John, what a beautiful video. In fact, just today, someone working with prisoners who have COVID in Louisville has been exploring how to bring the game into the prison and work with them. So I want to learn from both of you about that process, because I think this could be a whole new world for us to explore about peace on Earth, starting in that particular part of the Earth. So Rick, I am a dreamer. I'm an official dreamer, and I'm an official crazy one. That is, I believe anything is possible. And so I believe peace on Earth by 2030 is possible, and not only possible, but imminently doable. And the reason I believe that is because we have learned a lot over the last 34 years about how to actually create strategies that can effectively transform behavior and scale around the issues that are critical for peace on Earth. And we've identified them as 7 actions that are now embedded in this game, Peace on Earth by 2030 game, as well as what we call 7 frequencies, which are the essence of these actions that are the actual consciousness dimension of the game. And yesterday we launched it to the world. We were so happy with our result. I know in John's world, thank you, John, for all your help. We had about 50,000 people come. So we were very happy that the word got out there, and tons of teams have been started in new pose zones. We had 17 before. I have no idea what we have now, but people are pouring in from around the world. So we're off and running. We only have, well, exactly 10 years to get there, maybe less one day. And the idea of a tipping point is the key part of the game. What we've discovered is that 1/2 of 1% of humanity is the tipping point for transforming consciousness, transforming a belief structure across humanity of what isn't possible to become possible. So that's our first aspiration of the game. 40 million, we call them dream keepers. And it's not just that they have played the game, but they hold the belief and they live the belief and they practice the actions that peace on earth will occur, not just is possible. And we now have a bunch of them. You know, as of through the beta, I think John is one of the official ones. You have to actually complete the 7 actions to be, I mean, you can be a dream keeper without them, but you are more credible because you are now practicing the behaviors. And it takes a while to get there. It doesn't just show up. That's a big shift for most of us to believe something audacious like that could be possible given the current world that we live in. And the key criteria for being a dream keeper is that you can't let the present in any way limit you from what's possible. So you have to enter into the future. You have to see the future. You have to live into the future. And you have to bring it back into the present. Because if we look at the present as a way to determine what's possible for the future, none of us could see anything changing. I mean, we could see small things changing, but not the big things. So we have to go there. We have to figure it out. We have to find it. Not figure it out, we have to find it. It's almost like we have to find it spiritually, and we have to bring it into the present. And so that's the metaphysics of the game and the metaphysics of this movement. And once people understand it, they can start entering into these, well, it's more than the behaviors, they enter into the consciousness. And we've also learned that the 7 frequencies of the game, which are, I will share with you, oneness, faith, empowerment, unity, cooperation, abundance, and love. That's what the 7 actions distill in their essence to become. Are also what we see to be the DNA of the Golden Age, a time on earth when we are living in harmony with self, each other, and the earth, when we are cooperating, when love is prevailing, peace is prevailing, abundance is prevailing. So they're also bring in those frequencies. And all you need to do is show up and play the game, and that comes with the territory. So there's a lot more I can say. I actually have a 2-minute video. John inspired me. I got it ready, which is what that noise was in the beginning of your video for a moment, John. Sorry about that. I muted as a result, realizing that it was actually went right on. So shall I play the video? Because that'll give people a really good feel for this.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so let me see how it goes into share mode here. Okay. And then I have to optimize. And I've learned a few things over the years. Now I'll go into share. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so.
What if peace on Earth was actually possible? What if it was not only possible, but could be achieved by 2030? What if enough people playing a game could tip the world into this reality? We are building a movement of dream keepers, those who believe peace on Earth is possible and are committed to making it a reality. Empowered with the 7 actions that enabled the first Earth run to unite the world and create peace on Earth over its 86-day journey, these 7 actions are designed as a global game that will take place between 2020 and 2030. The planet's wisdom keepers tell us that when 1/2 of 1% of humanity wholeheartedly believe peace on Earth is possible, that's 40 million people, there will be enough coherence of thought and emotion to shift our collective consciousness to make this a reality. With the torch held high, we will experience the world we most want in our hearts coming into existence and witness the dawning of a new future for humankind. Play the game and have fun. Make friends. Create community. Make a difference. Celebrate our common humanity. At this critical time, when we are becoming more and more divided, this game serves as deep medicine to heal that which separates us. We invite you to be one of the planet's dream keepers and accept this sacred fire as a torchbearer for our future as a species. I'll carry the torch. Will you?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. and that there was a reference to what you did, which I mentioned, where you engaged like 25 million people, right? And 62 countries, and
62 countries and 45 heads of state, yes.
wow, incredible.
Interestingly enough, Rick, it was 1986, which was the inauguration of the International Day of Peace. And it was also the International Year of Peace. So this was kind of helping anchor that whole movement that we're now celebrating today.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it sounds audacious, like you say, you know, and of course, skeptical folks will say, okay, how's that possible? How can you do that? But you're backing it up with some strong experience, and I think it's important to have audacious, big, hairy, audacious goals, as they say. Otherwise, I wouldn't have started We the World, and ShaRon wouldn't have started No Judgment, Just Love, and and John with the Sign Network Compassion Games. So it's important, and I think it's necessary to have a lot of things happening at the same time. I kind of wanted to, um, you know, bring in maybe to a little roundtable, what will it actually take to achieve that? And I know you have the 7 actions. One of the things that I always talk about is, especially with, We the World and the We campaign, is this idea of making a cultural shift towards a society that prioritizes we consciousness, where the health and well-being of each and every member of society is considered to be essential to the survival and well-being of the whole of society. And we're at a point now where with the COVID, this concept is actually front page. It's like the headlines. If you have one person who has COVID-19 in your community, then the whole community realizes that they're at the risk of survival of the whole community. And we want to kind of expand that consciousness to say, if one person is homeless, or one person is discriminated against, or go through all the list, then that also is a danger to all society, and that's kind of the essence of a we-based society. Any thoughts about that, David, or anyone? And how might that integrate with this idea of actually achieving peace on Earth?
I think Rick and John is very much a proponent of this idea of synergy. Synergy is the critical piece. You need a whole system to create the kind of change that is going to make the impact that's necessary. So part of how that works is that you need to bring in a lot of the different players in the system. When you think about the racial justice movement, for example, which is a part of this larger whole, we're doing a presentation on Wednesday night with a leader in the racial justice movement named Chris Watson in Minneapolis in honor of George Floyd. They're having 10 days of nonviolence. And one of the things that I always describe is that when you think from a whole system, part of the the racial justice movement or any justice movements, social justice movements, is that someone has been left out. When someone's left out, then that creates dissonance in the system. And so you have to bring everyone in, and you have to figure out how to bring everyone in. And that's an evolutionary perspective. It's not just, a reaction to being left out or fear of being somehow subsumed by some other entity. It is a whole new architecture for how you think about change itself. So the Peace on Earth game is based on that kind of strategy. It's designed as a whole system. So we have these Peace on Earth partners who are building whole system solutions, bringing in all the sectors of a community. We have what we call partners. John, we're up to, I think, almost 800 now. We wanted to get some big number. We did. And 1,200 team leaders that when we started launching yesterday. And each of them are perceiving, many of them are part of your various networks. Each of them are perceiving that they can further what they're doing by being part of something like this. So they don't have to carry all the weight on their own shoulders. So we're creating what we call an empowerment ecosystem. So everything that you all are doing when you're building these communities of collaboration and synergy are essential. And the game is designed to activate that as fully as possible because we can't get there by itself. And the actions themselves becomes a how once they say, yes, here's how we can do it. And if there's already something they're doing, like what you're doing, ShaRon, then its goal would be to help amplify that. So anything that any partners are doing that are part of the game or indirectly part of the game, the goal is to amplify it. So we're building the whole field.
Exactly. And you're a big part of this project, right, John, with Sign Network and everything?
Oh yeah, my heart's here and behind David and the teams that are playing. The shift to that weak consciousness, just this morning I learned something that was helpful because someone I trust and respect said, people need to sacrifice. That unless people are willing to sacrifice. And I put that forward, and someone reminded me that sacrifice actually means make sacred. And I think that we're going to imagine a new kind of sacred relationships, sacred partnerships. This shift from me to we, is a values clarification. I mean, we're in this together. I think one of the actions is better together, right, David?
Yes, John.
And discovering that in the process and realizing that we can recast what may have looked like just self-interest as shared interests and getting good at that and looking to how to think in a win-win way. Because win-lose is lose-lose. And we're good at that. Me first, and this way of operating is the way we've been swept along. And to start to live a life where that's sacred, that you're making the changes and the choices. This is a different way of being and being together. It's like, for me, I always go back to music, Rick. I know you're a musician too. You know this. Playing at the same time is not the same as playing together. And that takes a sensitivity and a respect for the other and an ability to attune to the other. It's not just waiting to be heard. It's not just waiting to promote your thing. It's how do we find a creative space in which what we're all doing can rise together. This is the mystery for me, and something I get up every morning. It's worth trying to figure out. How can I be a better relative, and how can I be more supportive of the people that are around me? And in doing so, by walking the path, we make the path visible. That's what Hereditary Chief Phil Lane says. So we're trying to really live these values, and in doing so, have amazing miracles like David's gift and bringing that forward. And why wouldn't we want that to happen? My gosh, nothing would make me happier than to see this occur in the next 10 years, that we really transform into a we culture like you've been dreaming of, Rick. That we get over our judgments, and it's not that we don't have them, right? But we don't let them influence us, that we're aware of our unconscious bias and we're able to start to talk about that. That's the miracle of this COVID experience, is that it's stirring up the conversations, the courageous conversations we need to be having. So looks like things are working in some crazy way. Maybe not the way we thought, but grateful to be on the team.
Right. Exactly. Any thoughts, ShaRon?
I do. And I am tremendously appreciative of what David and John are doing. I see us, and you, Rick, I don't ever want to leave you out. But I see us as a relay race. And I'm feeling more like the beginning runner, the one that is working with individuals. Because, David, as you so rightly say, we have to shift our behavior. And it's very difficult, as we were just talking about ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, as well as people who feel and are left out, or they feel and think there is a limit to their vision, David, to their ability to have in this world whatever they desire. And that causes a resistance to being able to even consider audacious dreaming because their lives don't present that opportunity to even consider that. So I find that my gift as the first leg of this run, as we get up to you, John, to amplify, and you, David, to have the scientific and detailed ways to do these shifting of behaviors, is to start with me and have every person start with them. Because when you have when you can cultivate, like I believe I'm here to do, cultivate love, help it grow, tend to it, cultivate self-love, really truly understanding what that means. It's not just going to the gym and taking a spa. It's actually working with, yes, John, you're right. We judge all the time. That's human and natural and normal. And that's not to be denied, because then you're denying who you are as a human. But my no judgment, just love asks you to go beyond those judgments, to take that pause after you make a judgment of yourself that you're not worthy to dream audaciously, that you're not worthy to have peace at any point. Forget about 2020, just peace in your day. I believe that it's important for me to stay centered around that gift and help people come to the soup whole, fresh, and ready to be a part of peace at any day, 2020, 3030, and beyond. I'm sorry, 2030 and beyond.
You know, it's interesting because I agree with you, ShaRon, about that you could say peace begins within and with yourself. And another crucial piece is the act of service, and the healing that brings in. You know, one of the reasons that I actually started We the World, or one of the benefits, let's say, when I started in 1998, and I was gathering people to be on the board and everything. I had a little booklet of information, and there was a whole section there on this idea, the psychological reasons to start something like We the World. So this idea that all of us, no matter what kind of childhood we've had, for whatever the situation was, we all have some kind of void in our lives that comes as a result of getting buffeted around or whatever happens in our childhood. And the question is, how do we fill that void? And of course, we know that some people try to fill the void with alcohol or drugs or shopping or watching TV, or you can go down the list of things that could and have filled the void for people. But one of the possibilities is to fill that with making a contribution to the well-being of others, being of service. And that can also help to fill that void, and giving the possibility of or ways that people can actually take action to be of service to themselves and others on the planet is as important a healing modality as other kinds of self-healing. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think whenever I'm sad or depressed and I turn that towards helping someone else or someone calls, not only do I stop focusing on my sadness or my frustration, but I start focusing on someone else, and what was bothering me kind of dissipates because I'm not giving it any attention. So I absolutely agree, Rick, that I think our essence here is to serve. And when I serve me, I serve you, because we are one.
Exactly. And I think that's also the essence of the compassion games and the 2030 games. Right, John?
Our case, for sure. It's this fostering of the, creativity to turn that empathy into action, and to actually stop and consider what is going on for somebody else. So this idea of self-regulation, staying calm, to then co-regulate together, and this is an acquired skill. I mean, we're all growing and developing these skills at a time in our lives when we need to be more aware of the pain around us than ever. I mean, you hear these statistics: 200,000 people died. I mean, that's real life. That is everyone, and so many of these people are dying isolated, and the process of grieving. I mean, there's such tremendous need for compassion in the world right now, and I know that that's a challenge for me to stay open to that. So the other day I was talking about Rumi, and I was been on Zoom too long. I called him Zoomy. He says, "Eat lightly."
That is so funny.
Zoomy, yes. Eat lightly, breathe deeply, gaze intently, and move freely.
It's
Mm.
beautiful.
That freedom that we have now, it's unbelievable. We're connecting this way, and that we can take on the challenges that are right before us and opportunities right before us, like to create peace on earth by 2030, like to be able to live with no judgment. I mean, all bets are off. No one would have figured it to happen. I don't know where it stops. We're in that space between no longer and not yet. It is a moment of choice. We really can do it. I mean, that's why I'm so excited about everything that's going on, what David's up to, what ShaRon you're doing, and what Rick's. I'm one of those crazy ones too, David. Here's to the crazy ones.
Yes, count me in.
There's a lot of us. I want to say something, ShaRon, to what you were describing about poverty of hope, poverty of vision. And I'm curious how you help people transform that.
One of the ways is where you focus, and including gratitude in your life will start to expand your awareness that you have what you think you don't have more. And when you focus on gratitude, even the simplest things, sometimes I focus on, I'm so glad I have hairs in my nose so it stops all the bad stuff coming up when I take every breath I take. I mean, that's a silly thing to give gratitude for, but gosh, I appreciate that. I can't imagine breathing without my nose hairs. And so when people can turn to even and laughter and play, just like we all are talking about, there's so much resistance to laughing genuinely, having a big guffaw about something that excited you, not laughing at other people or something outside of you, but just finding those little places of things that happen in your life, David, that you skip over because you're so focused on what you don't have. And once you can give gratitude for those tiny things, that you woke up today, holy cow, that's a gift. And wherever you can find those, I think, opens up your heart to allow the awareness that hope can happen, even tiny hope.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yep. Wow. So David, can you tell us how people can get involved with Peace on Earth by 2030? Where do they go, and
Well,
what
they
can
go
they
to
do?
they go to the website. So it's peace2030.earth, peace2030.earth. That's the URL. And then they go to the top of the page and it says sign up. And then they sign up and they get to become a team leader if they wish. If they want to be placed on another team that because they're not ready to be a team leader, then that is another option, and we'll link them up. There's also an option to create a PO zone, Peace on Earth zone, where these 7 actions are practiced in a community and where they start to use the actions to take on the issues that are most important to that community's growth. You might call those the growing edges of the community, which is what a lot of these PO zones are doing. So they vary according to what the needs are, the team perceives and or the community is calling forth. John, by the way, you'll be very interested to know that of one of our 17 PO zones, one of them is in Louisville, Kentucky. So yay, Louisville's in the action again. We have PO zones throughout California. I think we have 3 or 4 there throughout the Midwest. We have them throughout Australia, Thailand. I think I don't even know how many came in yesterday because they were coming in quite prolifically. So that's the process. And then what happens is that you, if you choose to be a team leader, which is what we encourage everyone to be, because then you can move into action and then you get this immense amount of personal development by the processes that you'll learn, which come out of my 40 years of work in empowerment. So it's quite a personal growth opportunity for a leader, but also as a member of a team. My wife described it as one of the more demanding personal growth experiences you will have because you're out of your comfort zone. These are behaviors that we don't practice. So we don't practice in a very dynamic way. So once you start applying them, you are out of your comfort zone. And one should be out of one's comfort. It's unfortunate that this takes us out of our comfort zone, but hopefully at some point this will be our comfort zone. But right now it's not. So how do you befriend those who you would normally reject because they're different from you? There's an action, befriend the other. How do you bring people together in this unitive space where you see what we share in common, to your point, variation on gratitude, but what we share in common rather than what our differences are. And it goes on. Each of the 7 actions is a distinct behavioral strategy that if enough people apply it, represents the full continuum of what's required for peace on earth in our experience. And every group, and John and I were doing a little game earlier on when he was helping in the early stages of sort of all the sign members, and everyone fit into one or more of these actions because it does represent the strategies that are currently being applied. They may not even describe what they're doing strategically. They're just doing this thing that they think is important. But when you think about it strategically, it represents a key behavioral change intervention, or it can, if they fully develop it. So we're also up-leveling the playing field. So people get to understand what they're doing from a perhaps more strategic point of view rather than just, this is a great thing, I want to do it. But what if I understood what its specific behavioral change strategy was, I could take it next to the next level, and I could maybe even articulate it better to funders or to others that I want to bring along. And then if you get all of those kinds of organizations and strategies integrated, you start to have a more dynamic capacity for change rather than all the isolated activities which don't have the full power because they're not coherent. So that's how to play. That's a little bit more about the how of the game, a little bit more about the sort of strategy of the game, if you will, for how we actually create change, the kind of change we need.
Right. So I'm kind of curious about that as well, that idea of having some kind of coherence to what everyone is doing. I always like to talk about that idea of what a laser is. You have ordinary light where the photons are going in all different kinds of directions, and it's like totally incoherent. But then a laser, light amplification for the simulated, what is it? Emission of radiation. I think that's what laser stands for. And then you have all the photons moving in the same direction at the same time. And then that makes it possible to begin to address some of the obstacles, which you could think of as giant masses that are sitting in the passageway, the passage towards peace, let's say peace on earth. There are giant obstacles, right? And so have you thought about, what about the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the health industrial complex,
Well, I love what
the complex of complexes.
Well,
So how can the coherence of all these actions, let's say you have 40 million people who are now working together, how do you envision how that will resolve itself? So
I love that question. Thank
say
you.
it again.
I love that question. Thank you.
Sure.
Let me also build on the laser metaphor. Some of you may know the work of Ilya Prigogine, the Nobel laureate. And one of the pieces of research he did was how you move a system to a higher order. And he says what's required are islands of coherence. Small islands of coherence can shift a system to a higher order of functioning and performance. That's the laser, but at a systems level. So a team is a higher order of coherence. It is or an island of coherence to create a larger shift. For example, in our community, Crestone, one of our first zones, one team, adults, and one team of young people decided that they were going to organize themselves based on the learnings of the game to cure hunger, and they've done that, Crestone. And they've created from zero, they have 9 organizations collaborating. They have created 9 community gardens. People are being able to be fed. That's an example of the laser. And because they've been trained in these actions and they've built a powerful team that's coherent and focused and skillful and intentional, they can achieve a lot. How it applies to all the multitude of complex systems or systems of systems is a different question. It's a question that comes out of another body of my work called Social Change 2.0, a book I wrote, a blueprint for reinventing our world, which is about the process of what's called second order change. So let me just give you a quick understanding of that, because what you've asked is actually more complex than just a peace game. So our world is a function of many social systems: healthcare, education, political, economic. The complexes that you've described are often connected, political and economic, for example. So you see some of these systems that are integrating are not so good sometimes. Sometimes can be for good. But anyway, these social systems are deeply stressed right now. And when they become deeply stressed, they oscillate and perturbate and become unmoored from that which keeps them in place, which causes them to break down. Our political system is poster child of a system that's broken and has fallen down. And there's nothing holding it in place. So we're just sort of in this space of just dysfunction. But when a system is unmoored from that which keeps it in place, it can also break through to a higher level of performance and social value, which is second order change. And the book I wrote, Social Change 2.0, is how to do that. And the game is a second order change solution. It's a second order change solution. That's why it's getting the traction. And so let me compare a second order change solution with first order change solutions around the issue of peace, for example. So first order change solutions are incremental. second order or transformational. Our incremental solution set right now that humanity is moving forward are passing laws, trying to get some kind of legislative intervention, which is command and control. The goal is to force someone to change. The second is financial incentives or disincentives. The goal is to pay someone to change. The assumption is they won't change otherwise. So you have to force them or pay them. The third is awareness campaigns, which is the hope that if someone knew what the right thing to do is, they would do it, which isn't really a behavioral change strategy. It's awareness, and we've learned that that doesn't do it by itself, as we know about all the things we should do but don't. We are our own walking case studies, most of us. And then the fourth is social protest, which is to shame someone really into change. But the change they're often pointing at is first order in the first place. So it's a vicious cycle. Pass the law, give us the financial incentives, do this or do that. So when you can't get change to happen because the nature of change that's required is transformational, then people get into large scale despair and hopelessness. But there is another way, and that is to empower someone to want to change. And to empower someone to want to change, which is why I asked you that question, ShaRon, earlier.
Yes.
Gathering intelligence on how you are designing such strategies, you need to create a compelling vision of the possible and the tools to achieve it. So as I move forward the Peace on Earth game, it's part of a larger initiative called Reinventing the Planet, which is to build second order change capacity planet-wide around the three critical issues we must address: are poverty, war, and ecological collapse. And I've got initiatives that are addressing each of those around climate, around peace, as we know, and around development, particularly in the developing world countries, through women's empowerment. So, so the answer to your question, which isn't really an answer, but it's a contexting of your question, is that you need to build second order change solutions. They're sophisticated solutions. And by the way, second order change does not in any way deny or diminish the value of first order change. We still need laws. We still need financial incentives. We still need protests. We still need awareness campaigns. It's just that it's not sufficient to get the kind of change that's required. So how does the game fit in that space? I would say the game's primary role is to change the culture of how people relate to one another. Because at the end of the day, it's transforming our relationships with other human beings on the planet. And when you try to create change, when that is now part of the cultural milieu in a community, for example, like Crestone, amazing things can happen. So that's where the game fits. But the question is a more complex question than the game is designed to achieve by itself. But as part of this larger Reinventing the Planet strategy, yeah, it's on our radar screen, how to work with some of the large complex system transformations.
Oh, that's great. And it's great to hear that the Peace on Earth by 2030 games are part of the larger vision that you're talking about. And do you have teams kind of in place on reinventing the planet? And in other words, are you talking with other groups of people about those things? Or, I mean, are these all happening simultaneously?
Each of these strategies has been in play for some time now, and they're all getting ready to scale right now. We're working on a climate strategy called Carbon Neutral Cities that starts from the bottom up, similarly throughout California. And it's designed as a second order change solution, behavioral change at scale, as John describes. He always gives me the role of being the bad guy, telling him I was discounting all his work. I always have to correct him a little bit. I know he uses that for effect, but I was saying there's more. It's not like that's not enough. It's like, great, kindness. I want to see as many good things like that in the world as possible. And there's more to get the actual long-term behavioral change process in play. So yeah, we have that, and we're working in 12 countries across Africa, India, the Middle East, to move our we call our Imagine initiative forward. We're building what we call centers for reinventing the planet in various locations around the country and the world, which are building the capacity. We just did this Jedi training, building capacity and second order change. And then we're raising a lot of money. We're raising a large fund, RTP fund, to make investments in these changes and change the way we invest in social change. Because right now, the current approach to investing in social change is investing in first order change solutions, wanting a second order change result. And so there's tremendous disenfranchisement of funders because they aren't getting the ROI that they hope for. So we're hoping to redirect a lot of money, like trillions of dollars, into now having a new criterion for making investments, second order change. And so, you know, that's another game changer, is the whole money space. So more, I could go on. It's a big project. Reinventing.earth, reinventing.earth, and go there and you'll learn all about this.
Right. Oh, that sounds great.
Wonderful, David.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love the integrated strategy on many different levels, and that gives me more, you know, more to, you know, because the big, hairy, audacious goal of peace on earth by 2020, it requires that kind of strategy and complexity and thinking things through. You know, it's part of one of the things that I was kind of wondering about before I met you, David, is why is there no think tank that is talking about this level of complexity that is needed in order to make these kinds of changes, you know? You know, and of course, there's a lot of pieces of what you're talking about that we've been doing with We the World, but I think it might be good for us to begin to integrate it.
Well, I
you know,
like that
these things.
question. I want to invite my colleagues into this conversation as well. So let me just say one thing about that. We're building a think tank. The Center for Reinventing the Planet is designed as a think tank. And we've identified what we call the leverage points, the most important evolutionary goals we have to get right to sustain the planet and or to get basic functionality so that people can have a quality life. But there are a multitude of issues that have to be addressed. And they need to have this deeper understanding, this what I call second order change operating system, in order to be functional, in my judgment. You know, as the saying goes, you can't, if you keep trying the same thing over and over again and get the same result, then there's something wrong with your thinking. They say it not so nice way. But the point is that we haven't stepped out of our thinking process. So we have to change the way we think about change. So part of our goal then is to build that capacity around the world. And our goal would be to look for projects that are playing in that space or wish to play in that space. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was alluding earlier to this workshop I'll be giving on Wednesday night in the Twin Cities. It's called An Evolutionary Strategy for the Racial Justice Movement. I'm giving it with a racial justice leader, a woman named Chris Watson. And she is playing the game, and she wants to bring the Peace on Earth game to the racial justice movement, for example, because she said it's plateaued into this pathology state of just what's not working, and it could go to a whole other level. So that's a second order change intervention into a space. And so she's getting incubated in our Center for Reinventing the Planet Think and Do tank to build that kind of capacity so she can bring other leaders into that space and help that movement go to the next level, understanding second order change versus first order change interventions. So that's an example. And it applies to lots of different initiatives. There's another one we're working with around building a new economic model. And there's others that are in an early stage around how to think about the next political system from a second order change perspective. So there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, that sounds fabulous. Anyone else want to make any comments, and we can kind of wind up our
Well,
session together.
yeah, I just think that this time is so unique that we need, in that visionary space, the practices that support the reconfiguration of these current identities. It can't continue. And we know that. The Chinese proverb that says if we don't change our direction, we're likely to wind up where we're headed. The focalization, the bringing to resolution new ways of being and new ways of organizing are this is our time. This seems to be what we've inherited as the opportunity here. So there's nothing I'm holding on to. I'm willing to, rediscover and reimagine together what a world that works for everyone looks like, and what we've got to do, what I've got to do personally, what I've got to take care of around me, building that kind of culture, the love that you talked about, ShaRon. I mean, power of love is amazing. I mean, if you live like, that your concerns are my concerns. Mm-hmm. What is it to love somebody and love in a way that is uplifting and empowering? And this is the time for us to really rise. That's why the whole up convergence was oriented this way, to say that, everything that rises must converge. And it seems to be, this is our call to rise at this time. Humanity is rising. And, I'm willing to discover, and I'm willing to play with everything I got. I don't know what better use of my life. This is truly worthy of my life. And I'm grateful to everybody for what you're doing, and the fire that you're carrying, and the flame and the torch and all of it. May it be just what we need to get us from where we are to just somewhere over that event horizon, in which there's peace on earth by 2030, and a world made lit by fire one more time.
All right. And ShaRon, any thoughts from you?
I'm just sitting in the beauty of this conversation, feeling uplifted, feeling even more hopeful. David and John, I know your work, but I want to know it deeper, because as you speak, I know I'm doing, what did you call it? A second order changing. I have been a lobbyist before in my previous days in New York, and I actually got married at the UN chapel. And so I'm ready to be in some place of government with this second order change, David, because you're right. It is, it's painful to watch. It's painful to be a part of it. So with No Judgment, Just Love, I totally invite people to come visit the website. It is www.njjl.world. And on that website, scrolling down to the bottom, you'll have the opportunity, as David has in his real global way, 5 simple action steps of how to begin considering living with no judgment, just love. Because this is not just a phrase, it's not just a symbol, it is a daily, moment-to-moment practice, because we judge all the time. That's just who we are. So it's not one and done. It is a building block of, okay, that I'm willing, and willingness is so valuable. Are you willing to just experiment? Are you willing to be wide with your dream, to think that you can live with less judgment and receive and give more love that we need in this world? And so I invite you to download those 5 action steps and just put them up. Help your children, help your family, and see if this can be a game. Because when we are light in our essence of who we are, when we're not downtrodden and so pained, amazing, incredible things happen. So I play with No Judgment, Just Love, just like you, David and John, are playing in your compassion games and your peace on earth by 2030. And then I just had something that I wrote down. Oh, yes. I want to invite people to get in touch with me, because one of the things that I am beta testing with communities, with government, is comfy couch conversations. Because we here, at least in America, have, I believe, lost our ability to sincerely communicate what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and recognize that other people communicate differently. And I think that is causing a lot of friction and walls to go up, as we cannot hear through compassionate ears and open ears. So I understand from my individual journey and the hundreds of people that I've worked with, that when you have a safe space without being judged, with someone else who has open ears to just talk about your life experience, that allows you to uncover things that you would not ordinarily know about yourself. In the conversation of racial injustice, I sat with myself and I realized, ooh, I had some places I didn't know that were judgmental, not only from me outward, but me towards me. So I was unable to be involved in the movement, in the action, because I had to uncover how I was going to be valuable in that movement and action. And I think many people are just, reacting. Oh, I have to go do something. Oh, I have to go join this, when they haven't cultivated their own self-love space where they become now a valuable part of that action. And that comes from conscious communication with yourself. Rick, as you know, getting into
Yes, you know what I'm going to say next.
Yes, I do. But for people to really have that comfy couch space where they can be with themselves and have someone witness them, because it's important to have ourselves witnessed by other humans to remember that we are part of a whole. So thank you for being a part of this amazing conversation. I appreciate you all.
Yes, and of course, I was going to just mention that idea of nonviolent communication, NVC, that was created by Marshall Rosenberg, and of course, judgment is an integral aspect, and dealing with judgment is an integral aspect of nonviolent communication. And for me, that the idea that we all have maybe 90 or so physical and psychological needs that we all share on the planet, and these needs can never be in conflict. It's the strategies that we adopt to meet the needs that come into conflict. So we already have these needs like respect and meaning and autonomy and connection and love, and all of these things that humans share. We already have that as a beginning framework, where we can start from what we have in common, and then realize that it's the strategies that come into conflict, not our basic humanity, which is what we all share. So
Rick, if I could, this is what I want
yes,
while David's here about this,
sure.
because his judgment that the compassion games wasn't enough was a beautiful gift to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was, because it made me aware of social change 2.0. And I love to tell that story, not to make David the bad guy, but to say that I, had to accept within myself that upon reflection that I wanted the games to do more, and I wanted there to be more behavior change in the world. So David, I want you to know I lovingly tell that story.
No, I receive that, John, that way. I just want to put in a good word for you as part of that.
Okay. Well, I love you, brother, and it's been, that's why we built Sign the way we have, because we understand the importance of what you're saying, and that being kind and compassionate and loving is good. It's necessary, but not sufficient. That we need to bring about this kind of change within ourselves and up level the whole game in the process.
So Rick, I'm just putting in the chat a website, a URL for. I've mentioned it a few times, but it feels like it'd be very helpful for many people who might be listening in, particularly if they are in a social justice movement of one sort or another, trying to right what is wrong in the world. It's poe.earth/justice. This evolutionary strategy for the racial justice movement. And one key part of it is increasing the effectiveness, to John's point, and impact of the racial justice movement by learning second order change strategies based on empowerment, behavioral change, and vision, and how to scale. So this is a movement that is now primed. There's the gender version of it. There's a racial justice version of it. There are so many social justice movements because there's been so many wrongs that we're trying to right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that movement will stay plateaued like any other movement, as we've seen with the Arab Spring, and it goes back, and we've seen with many of the movements, because they're trying to do first order change to get second order change. So anyone this is a free training. It's a free workshops, 2 hours. It's 8 to 10 Eastern time. Please come. This is the URL. So we'll have many people from all over the world coming to learn how to upgrade their social movements, their social justice movements.
David, can I ask clarity? Is this what you just provided to us? What you said is happening Wednesday?
Yes.
With Chris Watson?
Yes.
And so how do we get to view you? And
you would register on this particular, this is the conference registration.
okay.
Register there, and then you'll see the program, and then you'll see Wednesday night 8 to 10.
Because
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Because in We the World, every Tuesday prior to us taking a break for the 11 days of global unity, we have a conversation with we members who just want to have the conversation about dismantling racism. And so, Rick, I'm suggesting maybe if you send out an email about this happening for that particular group of people, obviously go to everybody, but maybe people would want to tune in, sign up, tune in, and that can be part of our conversation the next time we meet.
I think it's a great idea. So I'm glad you reinforced that, David. Go ahead, David. You were going to say
I'm
something.
also going to send you all a flyer, so you have the benefit of that, so you can send it out if you wish to. But anyway, yeah, that's great. It'd be great to
Thank you.
play in whatever ways would be helpful. This was not on my radar screen. I mean, it's the kind of thing that shows up in my world, and we went toward it. There was this conference in memory of George Floyd in a place that's been in tremendous conflict, which is the Twin Cities. And they said, would you come and bring this experience and this knowledge into this space that is needing to be up-leveled? And then I reached out to my colleague, who's one of the Peace on Earth game leaders. I said, will you join me? Because I'm not a leader in this movement. I'm not in this movement at all. I mean, I think I could add value, but let's talk about how this could work. And so she's going to be interviewing me, wearing the hat of what's needed, what are the growing edges of the movement, how can second order change come and be helpful. And so we're going to explore together, how this works. So it'll be very, shall we say, evolutionary. The strategy is evolutionary, but the whole conversation will be evolutionary. And it starts from a place of vision and hope and possibility.
David, I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Marty Casey, the Ungun Institute,
Yeah.
and we've been working with Dr. Casey, and we did that Black Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That was all, Michael Brown's mom and other moms. So they're right here in the Sign Network. You should probably just check that out before you go there. But Ben and I have just been so moved by the Ungun Institute. In fact, Dr. Casey went to Washington, D.C. on the 28th. She was there at the National Mall, and she just went to Chicago as part of the Caravan of Unity. So the work that's happening there is from Ferguson out to the world, actually. And
Mm-hmm.
if you were unaware of that, check that out. I think you'll find that really to be inspiring.
And David, I look forward to the flyer as well, receiving that, because every other Sunday I'm in an interfaith conversation, and justice around the board is one of our topics. So I'd like to invite them to consider it as
I'd
well.
love to get your thoughts also. I mean, this is an emergent space, bringing these two worlds, bringing a second order change solution to a space that's requiring it and is currently operating in first order change solutions. So just sent you all the flyer. And John, if you know any, John, well, what a question. If you know any people, John, tell your world.
Tell the world.
Tell the world. And say what, I mean, you're kidding me. Rick, tell the world. John, tell the world. Let's see if we can seize this moment and make some good stuff happen in this event. I feel like there's something trying to happen here that's needed. And I've also worked closely with some of the people in the Arab Spring movement who have been struggling when they have flailed around because they had the opening, but they couldn't seize it because their strategies were not up to the change that was required. So the space closed again. And now they're trying to figure out what to do now. So there's a space that opens for a while and then closes. So when that space is open, it's a teachable moment for society. When it closes, it's hard. So this is the right moment for the racial justice movement. So yes, I'd love to think with you, ShaRon, on how to get this into the right places.
Yes,
and we can
thank
do another
you.
one beyond this at the right moment. Sure.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So I'm just going to make a couple of announcements, and then we'll do our do a little closing. So first of all, thank you all the speakers today, and everyone watching. Want to let you know that you can watch previous dialogues that we've had all during the 11 days, and Dr. Marty K. Casey was on our dialogue yesterday with the disarmament panel with her Ungun Institute, along with others talking about nuclear disarmament. And I want to draw your attention also to the historic summit on the future of humanity that we opened the 11 days of global unity with on September 11th with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Vandana Shiva and others, where Desmond Tutu actually speaks his mind about the protests that followed the killing of George Floyd, and truth and reconciliation, the climate crisis, pandemic, and what's needed at this perilous moment in our world. So you can see this and other dialogues by going to We the World's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/the-we-campaign, or our YouTube page, youtube.com/wetheworld.org. And to learn more about We the World and the We campaign, go to we.net. Of course, don't forget 11daysofglobalunity.org for all the 11 campaigns for change. And remember, as we've all been saying for the last hour or more, collaboration is key, and transformation is not a spectator sport. It's important to jump in and get involved in whatever way makes sense to you. And We the World offers ways that you can collaborate as an individual or as an organization. You can go to we.net/partner. And thank you again so much for this. I just want to say that I believe that we have accomplished 3 goals that we have for our events: inspire, inform, and involve. 3 I's that make a we. So we can go from a me society to a we society. So,
That's good, Rick.
yep, that's it. 3 and we. So thank you all, and to be continued at the second order of social change and transformation. Thank you. And bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.